Let's face it, the past few years have been an unprecedented mess. The weight of continuous, heavy issues, burnout, fatigue, confusion, stagnance. Sound familiar? What I decided to do was to have meaningful conversations with women I admire. It's the women in my life and yours that continue to thrive through whatever it is that life throws at them. I want to know, how are they doing it? How are they getting there? And how can I glean a little bit of their wisdom? This is that. And that's what she said. Awneet Sivia, thank you so much for joining me today in studio.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here, Carin.
You drove?
I'm delighted.
Oh, I'm so glad, because you drove from Abbotsford today, but you actually come all the way from Maple Ridge.
Yes, so it was a little bit of a trek being here on a Thursday before a long weekend.
Sorry. On a gorgeous, hot, sunny day, I might add as well.
And it was beautiful.
But
beautiful
thank you.
Thank you.
We go a long way back, actually, don't we? We go
do.
all the way back to when I was in the 12th grade. Please give us a little introduction. Who are you?
Sure. Well, my name's Awneet, and I'm delighted to be here, Carin, and
Thank you so much
reconnecting
for
with a
coming.
former student of mine.
So cool.
So yeah, we met kind of serendipitously, just for a moment in your life and in mine, when you were a grade 12 student at the high school that I taught in Maple Ridge.
And was that your first teaching job?
No, it wasn't actually. I taught in a few other schools prior to that, but that experience was early in my career.
Okay.
And quite transformative and impactful in lots of levels.
So let's dial back just a little. You became a teacher. Did you always want to be a teacher? Mm-hmm. Was that always in your cards? You grew up in. Okay, let's start where did you grow up? Let's go there.
It's interesting that you asked the question, have I always wanted to be a teacher?
Yeah.
And I'm going to answer that by saying something that I wrote in my awards package, which is, I think I've always been a teacher.
Nice.
So back to your question, I was born in India, immigrated in 1969. Okay. So back in that time, entering into a Canada that was very welcoming, embraced the multiculturalism framework that was put forward in 1972.
Did you come with your family, or did you immigrate on your own? Okay.
Yeah. Came with my family at that time, and came from a long line of teachers. My mom was a teacher, and my dad was a professor, and so there was teaching in my blood right from the beginning, and that's why sometimes I think I was always a teacher.
Yeah, fair enough.
And then grew up in, we spent a bit of time in Kitimat, BC, and
cool.
in Vancouver, and then moved to Kamloops, and that's really where I grew up, and sort of call my childhood home.
Okay, and Kamloops. And so now you felt like you were a teacher. Were you that kid when you were growing up that was sort of instructing everyone else, or?
Well, I didn't think I was, but maybe my friends thought differently. Yes and no. I think it was just the way that I would sort of see the world. And I really loved everything. I loved every opportunity I had. I just had this kind of childlike passion that actually is still with me about the things that I experience. And so I think there's a way of learning from experience that just came early for me in my life, in my childhood.
I love how Awneet mentions this childlike wonder. As soon as she started talking about this happiness she feels, this sense of feeling so excited and so tickled and delighted at things that have come her way, whatever the opportunity might have been, this really resonates with me because I feel like that too. I almost feel sometimes like a naive child energy works its way through me, and I love that. I've always thought, wow, I feel really lucky that I get to experience that because it really does make life really fun. And I wonder if that's the same for Awneet. It certainly sounds like it from the way she describes it.
Oh, I love that. I love how you approach these things with wonder. And that is definitely something that I noticed about you, in the last several years as we reconnected on Facebook, just your
enthusiasm for all the projects that you're involved in. So take me through how you went to SFU, was it, to do your teaching degree? Okay.
So I actually did my teaching degree at UBC.
Oh,
so I left Kamloops, left home at 18.
Oh, 18, okay.
Went off to UBC, and I was very fortunate to connect with some pretty, I would say, amazing, kind of pivotal people in my life in science education at that time. And so I really credit that foundation, early foundation, for taking that natural wonder and curiosity I had for just everything that I experienced and turning it into some professional work.
Yeah, to those tangible skills.
To those tangible skills of what I could do as a science teacher.
Cool.
And so met some really great people at UBC, started teaching. I taught a little bit in Merritt for a couple of years, and then taught in the Maple Ridge School District and taught high school science and math. And so when we met at Thomas Haney in 1992, when it opened, that was a very crucial time in my own professional growth.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Because that was not a normal school either.
No. And early in your career, there's opportunities to plant those seeds of transformation, innovation, inspiration. And I felt all of the above were planted in that school for me. So
I love how Awneet talks about her career planting seeds early on in her career. And she uses words like transformation, innovation, and inspiration. All while describing how those words and those seeds, if you will, meant something to her at that time in her career. I really like this approach because I tend to find myself getting really stuck in the moment and not necessarily seeing a moment for what it could be in terms of the benefits it could provide. So I really like how Awneet is purposeful about that journey and planting those seeds.
Really put into question that school being a self-directed, self-paced learning model in a high school, working collaboratively with teachers, when normally I was used to shutting the door and doing my thing. Really transformed that sort of triad of teacher, student, curriculum, and created all new relationships, which also created a lot of questions. And we know in science that the power of good questions is inquiry, is let's find out more. So that kind of led me to doing a master's program through SFU. And through the master's, I made some connections with people up there. And so in 2002, I left the Maple Ridge School District to go and work as a faculty associate at SFU, working with prospective teachers in the BEd.
Because now you are the teacher of the teachers.
I am.
In a way. So when did that change in your mindset? When were you ready to stop being a teacher? Well, not that you stopped really, but to sort of move to the next level of teaching the teachers.
We were talking earlier about how impact, right? And who we are as women. In my case, as somebody who represents a woman of color and from a minoritized community, I would often have students and other younger teachers come to me and say, I've just learned so much from you. And I'm thinking, what did I say? What did I do? I don't even know. And I think that kind of helped me gain some confidence and thinking that maybe I have something to offer, maybe I can influence change. And I was so taken by the transformations that were happening in that particular school, but just at that time in education as well, that I felt that I could do something at the grassroots by working with teachers at the beginning of their careers, very beginning, almost at the infancy of their careers, right? And at that time, ironically, I was also a new mom. So I had this understanding of what it was like at the beginning and what those that beginning phase of one's life is like, how much learning happens. And I thought, what if I caught teachers then? Right?
Something I've noticed about a few of these interviews that I've done is these women have an ability to look at their lives in different contexts. And I really like how Awneet is talking about the notion of identity and bringing the notion of identity into education and curriculum potentially, because how can we be educators or educate others without a true sense of self, a true sense of who we are as that educator, and how rich our experiences become when we can recognize that. I also love these parallels between new motherhood and new teachers, looking at newness in one's identity and how to approach that and how to sort of own what you learn as another skill that you have in your repertoire. Yeah, it's an amazing perspective. And certainly when you're on the ground experiencing life, not super easy to come up with, but I greatly appreciate that she was able to share that with me.
What an amazing analogy, but it's so true. At the beginning of your teaching career, you're like a sponge, I would imagine, just looking for pedagogies and methodologies that work for you.
And identities.
Oh,
and that was the piece that I think really spoke to me when I was there.
What do you mean by that?
So the focus, as I was saying, the focus on my own education, if I look back, was very much about, learning content and figuring out sort of the framework that I had needed to fit into.
Yeah, okay.
Of this country, of the world, of social society, of disciplines, and so on. When I went to SFU, I saw a curriculum there that was already, well established. That was very much about focusing on identity, and so I call that an identity conscious or identity focused curriculum. And what I noticed was that as the students were starting to learn to become a teacher and who they were and understand their own sort of complexities as people coming to the classroom with all of these great gifts that sometimes they couldn't even find them through their own education, found them there. I found mine as well.
Wow.
And so there was this kind of mirror journey of my own becoming, right, which was really beautiful. So that identity focus is a piece I, to this day, keep as a strong focus in my own teaching. Yeah, so I stayed at SFU for a number of years, worked with a whole bunch of different programs, had the privilege of, one of the highlights was working with a group of foreign credentialed teachers. So I used to say, I get to teach, the United Nations of Education.
That's so
in
cool.
my classroom.
Do you mean foreign credentialed, like English teachers who would go to other countries, or teachers from other countries who were teaching here?
Other teachers from other countries, qualified teachers who had immigrated here with their families and wanted to reclaim their professional life.
Oh, I see. So you were able to help them get certified in Canada, though they were already teachers elsewhere. Oh, cool. That would be a very, very interesting and rewarding thing to do, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was very rewarding and really a highlight to see teachers reclaim their professional identity in a new world, in a new context, in a new society. And still find that joy of why they went into teaching in the first place.
In the first place.
Yeah.
Wow. And I really love what you said about you were a new mom was this at the similar time that you were at SFU?
Yes.
So you had already been teaching for some time when you had your children. Mm-hmm. What was your experience of motherhood like in terms of this philosophical outlook of new beginnings and being sponge-like?
Yeah, beautiful question. I think if I think about it, wonder, right? And recognizing that I'm on the learning journey as much as my children and my students are, that I learn alongside them. And this kind of alongside learning piece has been and has become even stronger feature in my work.
Really?
Is just working alongside. Now, of course, in some leadership roles that I've been in, people have described me as somebody that leads from the middle and sort of works alongside people.
Oh, I like that. Okay, leads from the middle. Unpack that for me a bit.
I'm still unpacking it and still figuring that out. I think it has something to do with recognizing humility in terms of my own, this is what I know. This is as much as I know at this time because of the experiences I've had. But from here, let's learn together. Let's learn some more because there is more to learn. There is more to know. And I'm happy to walk alongside you in that journey. because I'm in that learning space as well. So I think recognizing some of that is part of that learning from the middle or leading from the middle.
I like that. That's a really cool way of thinking about it, because we're all sort of, I like to think about us all being on a journey. We're all of different spaces and times and contexts in that journey, but leading from the middle just seems like such a noble way of leading.
Well, I think it's underrated and quite underrepresented.
Yeah, fair
because
enough.
of, but it's changing. I think there's kind of a subtle but salient shift that's happening in the way that leadership is being imagined.
What a beautiful quote to say that there is a subtle yet salient shift in the way that leadership is envisioned. I love this notion of leading from the middle, of incorporating humility into leadership, of incorporating one's own learning journey and journey of identity into leadership. So much about what Awneet says rings so true to me.
And I certainly saw that when I was able to start to put together my own dossiers and my own sort of package for various nomination packages, thinking about who are the people that have influenced me and what kinds of leaders, what kind of teachers, educators were in my life that had those sort of pivotal moments that caused dissonance at times for me as well.
Oh, yeah?
And made me think differently about something than how I might have thought before. So.
Oh, interesting. Can you give an example of that? Of something that really jarred you and then turned you in a slightly different direction?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been very fortunate to meet people who I consider my forks in the road.
Okay. Oh, I like that.
Right?
Okay.
So people who've come along in my own life journey, whether they're educators, family, friends, and my own children.
Yeah.
Who have, at different times and in different circumstances, made me stop, pause, reflect, and think, that's where I thought I was going, but I'm actually going this way. And so, it's really powerful. And so one example I can definitely speak to is thinking that I was going to write a PhD on science education and transform the world of science education. I'd like to think I did a little bit of that. I had a conversation. It was literally just a conversation with a colleague up at SFU.
Okay.
And from that moment, the conversation kind of could be summed up in one sentence. You need to recognize who you are and the work you've done, and trust that experience, trust your pedagogy. And I thought, oh, I haven't done that.
Oh.
And from that moment, my PhD shifted to still working within teacher ed, still looking at education and the preparation of teachers.
Yeah.
But it really started to focus on my own learning and my own experiences. And so I wrote my dissertation as a self-study.
This is something that I think any person, any woman could really benefit from hearing, and really, really hearing it. Know or recognize who you are, recognize the suite of experiences and work that you've done up to that point, and trust that you do have something to contribute to a situation. Maybe any of you listening to this right now might be thinking, I've been in a situation where I could have stepped up. I did know what I was talking about, but maybe I was too intimidated to do so. That's what that's got me thinking about.
Trust your pedagogy. So your way of teaching, your way of learning. Trust yourself almost.
Trust yourself.
And do you feel like, I don't know, as women, I feel as sometimes we don't trust ourselves. Do you find any kind of difference in that? I'm sure you teach future teachers who are men and women. Do you notice any kind of differences in that way with respect to their own power or recognition of it?
Yeah. I would say that there's fewer and fewer differences in that sort of sort of way of seeing oneself as having power or having agency. But I can definitely say that from the beginning of the program till the end of the program, there's a huge shift. And quite often there's a larger shift in those who identify as women.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Okay.
Young women who are thinking, oh, I love teaching. I really love students. I love working with young people. I love working with kids, smaller children.
Yep.
And that's why I want to be a teacher.
A lot of those nurturing, caring.
Right? To, wow, I can really transform a student's life. I can really change because I've felt that transformation. I have seen my own growth and sense of agency come alive in this work. And so how do now I can do that with my students.
That's so cool.
So I think the transformation is greater over the year.
This notion of, well, I care and I'm soft. Like I care about people. I care about students and their process and I want to nurture them. It's almost like gaining an ownership of your ability to nurture.
Yeah, it is a little bit of the gaining our own ability, but it's also about recognizing a sense of agency. I think that's a big one.
That's a big one.
I often say to the students, we're really happy that you've come to the end of your program of becoming a teacher, and now I teach in the Master of Education program as well, and so we prepare future leaders for schools, educational leaders, all kinds, small L, big L, formal and informal. But in those leadership and teacher programs, what I hope people come out with is a sense that they actually have agency to make changes. So yes, you have to fit in and become part of a professional world, but once you're in there, what can you do to change it? How can you transform it from the inside? And what are the questions that are needing to be asked that haven't yet been asked? Can you find those gaps? And so positioning them as agents of change within the framework of being part of a society, part of a professional world, I think that's a really important goal, I think, of any profession, but certainly in education.
Oh, absolutely. And I want to ask you about so many aspects of this, because you left SFU eventually, and I like what you said about big L's and little L's. How does that factor into what you're doing now at the University of the Fraser Valley?
As I said, leading from the middle is little L.
Okay, that's the little L. Yes, right? Okay.
It's the little L, although when I did come here, I started at UFV in 2011. So I shifted from SFU to UFV in 2011.
Was that for a position?
Yeah, I came in as a department head for the teacher ed program. And we were a very small program at the time, based in the North Campus of Chilliwack.
Right on.
And then we were supposed to move to CEP, and through a number of conversations, we recognized that it was really important for us to be more centrally located.
Okay.
So we, under my time as the department head, we were able to relocate our program to Abbotsford, and we launched the secondary program, which.
So cool.
And as they say, the rest is history. After I finished my term as department head, we've had other fabulous department heads and leaders in that program who have taken it to amazing places. So we have a really great reputation, I think a good prominence in the community, and have continued to grow and added a Master of Education program. So I'm the chair of the Master of Education program, so a little bit more of a formal leadership role. And
you've we're going to tease this here, you have just won an incredibly prestigious fellowship, the 3M Teaching Fellowship. I really want to ask you all about that a little bit. We're just going to take a quick break and we will be right back. We are back with my guest, Awneet Sivia, and we've almost downplayed your role in the development of the education program at UFE. I want to talk a little bit more about your initial journey at UFE, culminating in this pretty incredible award that you've just won. So when you first came to UFE, your role was to develop the teacher program, or it was in its infancy and you were going to bring it along?
So it had already started, and I think the official start launch of the program was 2008.
Okay.
And I came in at the beginning of 2011.
Okay. Pretty soon
So
after. Yeah.
it already had a start and a foundation, which was really solid. But we knew that there was potential to grow, and there was a need to grow.
Absolutely.
Out in the Fraser Valley here, as our populations grow and the demographic of the community was changing. So in the department head role at the time, we kind of talked about really two things that we needed to amplify about the program. And one was to understand that the program wasn't these discrete sort of pieces of coursework and bits and parts that made up a program, but really a progression and of transformation of student to teacher identity.
Oh, wow.
And so in that, we went through a process of kind of identifying what the phases of the program were and created a curriculum map.
Oh, cool.
And that really helped in terms of giving all of us a collective vision as a department about where are we starting our students off in terms of their own developmental process of becoming teachers, and where do we want them to get to? You know, what does that sort of finish look like?
Yeah.
And it's not really an end, but just the finish and the next stage of their professional journey. So we worked on that part, and then the other piece was these beautiful 5 program values, and I said, these are really amazing.
Oh, cool.
And so social justice,
Okay.
pedagogical sensitivity, critical mindedness, reflective practice, and integration of theory and knowledge. Theory and practice, sorry.
That's amazing.
So those 5 program values were amplified, underutilized, and I think not fully understood.
Okay.
And so we worked together on how do we bring those to the fore? How do we really highlight those as the hallmarks of this program? It makes our program unique.
Yeah.
These 5 brilliant program values that Awneet talks about are worth repeating. Social justice, absolutely. In today's world, well, certainly in the world at large, we are now more and more aware of the inequalities that exist, obviously from a very early stage of life, or from, when someone has migrated or anything like that. We certainly, preparing teachers with a lens of social justice just makes sense. Pedagogical sensitivity was her second one. And so pedagogy is the notion of the ideas and the philosophies around which one teaches. And so being sensitive with respect to the actual big picture ideas in our school district in Chilliwack, we might call that the core competencies. What is our sensitivity to those areas? Third, to be critical minded. I love that one, critical minded, to use one's critical thinking skills. This is the ultimate goal, I would imagine, of course, a teacher to bring these skills out of their students. Number 4 was a reflective practice. Another value that comes with so much benefit. I often think to myself, well, that's reflecting in and of itself, but humanity, and I think, basic conversations and basic interactions between people would be different if we employed a higher reflectivity in our own actions, of course, in our own words. That was number 4. And then number 5 was integration of these things, of the theory with the practice. So mindfully, purposefully choosing to use what you know in a productive and positive manner together with the practices that you're doing in your day-to-day life. Just love it.
And so we worked a lot on thinking about threading those through our program, introducing them as part of our orientations, and centering them in terms of the research, scholarship, and teaching that we were doing in our department. And that made for a strong case for why we needed to relocate to the Abbotsford campus and grow even more as we brought in the secondary program. And so the secondary program came online in 2012.
Okay.
And in 2012, we added a math science stream for secondary and humanities stream.
And so you have... How many teachers come through the UFE program per year?
So it's a
Per
post
cohort.
Yeah, per cohort. So it's a post-degree 1-year Bachelor of Education. Nice. So you get a Bachelor of Education as a second degree.
Okay.
And we have each year anywhere between 64 and 96 students that come through. And I can say with certainty that the last 4 groups of teachers, we've had 100% of them hired.
Amazing. And do you know where? Like, do a lot of them stay local?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
There is this real sense of reciprocity that our students feel. They've come from these communities, they've come from the schools, and they just want to give back and they want to contribute back and they want to be part of that vibrant community and do really exciting things in it.
Yeah, and I can see how there would be such a sense of ownership almost of your experiences in a city, and you're growing up there, and there could be a real joy in going back and teaching in some of those same schools. I know as part of the school system myself, I see some teachers that have said, oh yeah, this is the school I went to when I was younger. How much passion do you see in your young teaching students for what they're doing, but also for how they're doing it?
I think that passion grows. They come in very passionate and very excited, but that passion grows, and I'd like to think of passion as a real kind of coming together of the intellect, the being, and the love that they have for what it is that they're doing and who they're doing it with, right? So just passion for learning, passion for young people. I always used to joke with, I still joke with the students, especially the secondary cohorts, you have to love living with adolescents because you spend more time with them than you do at home. So be prepared for that. So just that, love for being in human environments and with humans of all different kinds.
Yeah, that's well
as
said.
We know. And then just the intellect, right? There's a sense that as they come in, we say to them, "Well, you've been spectators of teaching for so many years.
Oh, okay,
You've been watching it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like watching a tennis game, but when you actually pick up the racket and the ball, it's a different story, right? It's you doing it. It's you having to build that skill. So,
what an interesting observation. We have, in fact, been witness to our own teachings for, 12 years by the time you graduate high school. And so, yeah, we are witness to teaching. How do we then jump right into it and do it? I like the point that Awneet is raising here, because we all, humanity spends so much time watching other people do things these days, whether, of course, it's teaching in a school, but, any number of skills. It seems like we enjoy watching people doing those skills more than we actually enjoy doing those skills sometimes. So I like this purposeful approach of actually doing things in a meaningful way. And of course, with a cohort of students, Awneet is able to do this incredibly effectively. Really interesting point, though, to consider, at what point do you stop spectating something and actually start doing it?
From this angle, what looks simple and what we made look easy as teachers is very complex. It's very complicated and requires a lot of rigor and focus. So they start to see the hard work that makes that look easy.
Yes. Oh, cool. And that would probably ignite their desire to do that even more, I can imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
And your program work that you've done everywhere, but at UFV most recently, has just culminated in the 3M Teaching Award. Can you tell us a little bit about what that award is?
Sure. It's an incredible honor.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible.
We had a whole party at the university last week just for you. It was well served. It was a fun party.
It was an amazing party. I did say at that time to a few of the leaders who were there, I said, it's very rare to be able to say that a university not only has your back, but is also in your corner. Right?
So cool.
So cool. So the 3M National Teaching Fellowship is a program that's sponsored by 3M and the Society for Teaching and Learning of Higher Education, STELI. And they've partnered to recognize each year since 1986 10 professors who have been nominated by colleagues, by students, by their institution, all of the above, to put together a nomination package and dossier for consideration by the committee.
Okay.
So the 3M National Teaching Fellowship this year has 10 of us who have been selected. And the criteria for the nomination or for the award is educational leadership, innovation, and teaching excellence.
Okay.
And so in those 3 areas, what they really want is not a laundry list of your accomplishments.
Okay,
because
right.
clearly if you're being nominated, you've got some
those.
things
Yeah.
in your past. But what they're looking for is your story. Who are you?
Oh, interesting.
How have you woven together? And that's really what it is. It's creating a fabric, a tapestry of your experience. How have you woven that together to represent your excellence in teaching, your vision for innovation in the field of education or in your disciplinary field? And what kind of leadership have you taken in terms of those goals that you've set for yourself? So it was a kind of I felt like it was almost writing my life story as a professional, and I quite enjoyed that because that's kind of my way of doing research when I think about self-study research and those kinds of methodologies that I use. So. Yeah.
And this was a package, like I know these award packages are huge. They can be immense. It's almost as though you had to do a bit of an autobiographical account of the pedagogical approach to teaching that you've had.
Yes. And so part of that autobiography for me was asking myself the question, what is it that has driven my passion, intellect, and wonder all these years?
Yeah.
What has it been? Because I keep saying this, I'm just doing what I love. And I'm getting recognized for it. But what is that? What is that thing?
That's
right?
the
What's
magic.
that gold? What's that magic? So I thought about how I could capture that. And so I actually turned to my own first language.
Oh, okay.
And in our language, we have in the Punjabi language, there's a word that we use, and it's himmat. Himmat.
Okay.
And himmat is translated, we lose things in translation, but it's loosely translated as someone who has courage or, heart, gumption, kind of perseverance, a fortitude. Mm-hmm. And I actually started my dossier by stating that people who know me often describe me as somebody who has himmat. Uh-huh. And I can see how that particular way of being in the world has actually helped me in my educational transformations, my innovations, my teaching excellence, and now in my leadership. I've had to draw a lot on himmat for lots of different reasons. And so I wrote about that.
How does one get more himmat?
Something that I've noticed repeatedly in my interview with Awneet is that she really does walk the talk, if you will. Even in her interview, she started off her interview by saying how much of a focus she has on the individual, your identity, knowing and understanding who you are and what the work you're doing really is. And I love how she stayed true to that for the interview. As we see her here now talking about this concept of himmat, and how that actually described her. And it's a thing or a feeling that she was able to once again really identify with and allow that knowledge to really push her along in her journey. She is someone who is very true to her words, and that's very meaningful for me as someone who was interviewing her.
Really great question. I'd like to think that by demonstrating it and modeling it and now being able to talk about it, I think other people around me might recognize that they have it in themselves. They might call it something else. But, we mirror each other's experiences in so many ways. we don't even know sometimes that we're doing that.
So true. And I love, we were having a brief conversation during the break about a group of women that you've been meeting with for quite some time, which sort of reminds me of this principle. Can you tell us about that a little?
Sure. So we get together. We've been a group of, we're actually known as the Wise Women Collective, named by one of us who acknowledged us, acknowledged our group as a source of himmet, a source of strength, a source of inspiration in her PhD. So clearly having some impact beyond just being a social group who gets together for dinners and so on. And we were talking about how we've all been so humble and just had so much integrity in the work that we've done. We've tried to do the best we can and done it with the sense that this is actually feeding my soul as an educator. And oh, by the way, I get to teach all of you, but really this is about me. This is filling my bucket.
Yep.
Exactly. That we've done all that. And now when there's recognition for it, it's such a bonus.
Yeah.
So that's a real sign of integrity, right? And that's actually one of the kind of roots of that word himmet is having some integrity between your beliefs and your actions. Right?
And something about that for me is really resonating is, women do this for each other without necessarily even recognizing it sometimes. And I love being able to recognize it and to you've done this in a professional context and really held each other up and been a source of true support and inspiration for each other. That's really neat. I feel like that kind of magical approach is something that's been quashed somewhat in big oppressive systems. And so I love that in something as huge as the education field that's so important to you.
Yeah. And I think it's because we don't separate who we are with the work that we do.
Ooh,
right?
okay.
So, and Parker Palmer talks about this, right? The identity of the integrity between who you are and what you do is so powerful. It's so important, right? So if I think about me wanting to lift up my students and amplify their gifts and help them find the gifts, as we say, it's not just about finding who you are, it's about finding out more about who you aren't and what you need to learn, right? Ooh. So just really doing that and lifting up and helping to amplify the life chances of our students. Why wouldn't we do that with our friends and our family? Right? Why wouldn't we find ways that we would do that for each other? And so I think, particularly as I age, gracefully, hopefully.
Girl.
that we surround ourselves, especially women, and women of all backgrounds, but particularly women who have faced external oppressive structures, that we find ways to amplify each other, lift each other up, and just really be each other's greatest champions.
Yeah, absolutely. And
the importance of women supporting women in any and all contexts cannot be understated.
This positivity, this energy of, and this notion of doing what you love and actually feeling the rewarding nature of that leads me to wonder what will be, your next step. Where are you going to go from here? Will you remain at UFV and continue in the education program there?
It's funny you asked that. You must know something.
Oh.
So as a result of all of these amazing recognitions and just the incredible journey I've had as a teacher educator within the teacher ed program, working with master's students, of course, and knowing that we're slowly but surely impacting change at the sort of structural and leadership level as well, has been recognized by people. And so I was encouraged to apply for a position that just came up a little while ago.
Oh, cool.
And so I am moving into a new leadership role. So as of September, I will be the new Associate Vice President for Teaching and Learning for UFV.
Wow. Yeah. You heard it here first.
And in keeping with her very humble approach, she just sort of, casually mentions it there. Oh, by the way, I'm the AVP of Teaching and Learning at UFB now. Okay, that's great.
I actually didn't know that. That is incredible. Wow.
I'm glad I surprised you.
What will that look like? Wow.
That's a really good question, and we may have to have a second interview.
Yeah, I
for
know,
that.
right? That's going to be that's a huge role. That's
Yeah,
a
it's
two-sentence title.
That's right. So I don't know all of it, but I do know that the current AVP, Dr. Maureen Weidman,
Yes.
has done an amazing job of really growing that department in a way that not just in terms of size and number of people,
Yes.
but actually in terms of scope and impact.
Okay,
Right?
yeah.
So reaching out to different faculties, working with faculty. So the way I describe it sometimes is it's like teacher ed at the university level, is really supporting faculty, trying to improve teaching and learning excellence across the institution in all different discipline areas, seeing what needs are there, what's not being met, and how we can support them. Working on the sort of technology end of things as well in terms of supporting, what is the future of what is post-pandemic life going to look like in post-secondary? How do we create community within? Because I think that's a big piece of it. If I think back to my own university days, your university days, anything beyond 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? University looked very different.
Sure did.
And so the question of where to from here and what will post-pandemic look like? That's those are questions that
you'll
I'm
taking on. And so I guess you will be moving into the education components of all aspects of the university, not just the education faculty. Is that right?
Yes.
Wow, that is so cool. So you will be actually impacting all departments at the university. I love how you just keep doing more and more.
I'm lifted up by many great people around me.
Well, I have so many questions about, this will be a very wide-reaching role. Is there any aspects of this role that you will find or do find particularly daunting? And I guess those will be your forks that'll be up there, turning you in interesting directions.
Yes, definitely. I think the daunting piece is just finding kind of, for lack of a better term, a sweet spot that helps to not only support faculty who are doing great work already, but to kind of push practice forward in a way that is still true to who they are. They're, maintaining their integrity, their authenticity, and also to be respectful of the discipline itself, right? So we know that excellence in teaching science can look very different than excellence in teaching in the arts or in music or in English literature, but there's still excellence.
Yeah.
And so how do we look for what those excellent pieces are and examples are, and then how do we start to support people to push their practice forward?
Yeah, I would imagine there's just going to be so much fodder for possibility, I guess, that I would even be quite excited to see, what does teaching look like in this faculty versus that one? Or, it's more experiential over here, or how does that even look in the trades, for example?
Right.
Or, that'll be really exciting, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm very thrilled, very honored to be given this opportunity to what I consider to have a bird's eye view.
Yes.
Right? A bird's eye view, really, a high altitude view, and yet be on the ground.
Yes.
In terms of making sure that we're working alongside.
Yes.
Leading from the middle.
Having this conversation with Awneet has just, been so inspiring. Even the various different roles that she has played in the past, several years, but the roles she'll be playing at the university upcoming. I'm inspired by her ability to keep being amazing. and how better can I describe it than that? I am so grateful that Awneet took the time to speak with me.
I love so many aspects of this conversation. I have to come to your motherhood role before I let you go, though, because you've done all this incredible stuff with your career. And but you're a mom. You're also a mom, and I love the way you said earlier how as a new mother you approached your work in a certain way based on that. How do you see this new role based on your children are older now, grown?
Yeah, they're all in their 20s.
So now you're approaching a new role, almost like a grown-up mom in a way. How do you see your role as a mother now in this area?
Yeah, I was just sharing this actually with one of our graduates from the BEd program in June. We had our convocation after a few years. It was so lovely to have that.
So lovely.
Yeah. And I said, and she's a young mom, and I said, I'm so impressed by all of the moms who managed to do this program while being full-time moms. And I said to her, I remember when I was a teacher, I started teaching before I was a mom. And when I became a mom, I thought, being a mom has made me a better teacher.
Oh, cool.
And when I was going to become a mom, I thought teaching made me a better mom. So for me, I think, back to your question about now in this next sort of iteration of my motherhood, and in my next iteration of my professional work, I think I would draw on the skills of patience, listening, working alongside, friendliness and being a friend and being a supporter, because that's really the role I play as a mom now to young adults.
Yeah, right.
Who are finding their way in the world, in a very uncertain world, in a very complicated and challenging world, but super exciting and super engaging. So I think that outlook might help in my work.
I know that it will. I can't wait to be witness to your journey for the next while. It's just such an exciting time. Awneet, thank you so much for joining me today.